Welcome to the Two and a Half Brothers podcast, where we discuss FPL views and strategy, but most importantly, our monthly league. Today's plan is to look at the first game week league table for August, have a think about the monthly game approaches that some of the players might be implementing, a quick game week one review of our teams, and then a look at game week two setup, any plans we have, views on transfers, that sort of thing. It's quite early in the season, so we'll keep this as light as possible. So with that said, evening, Jake. How are we?
Evening, Steve. Yeah, good, thank you. It's been good to get game week one underway and put it in the back of my mind. I look forward to the rest of the season. Looking forward to doing the first proper review and podcast of our teams after what feels like months of analysis beforehand. Let's take a look at the first iteration of our August monthly league standings.
So Moses leads our league for August. If you could grab his team there, Jake.
Yep.
So there are two more game weeks to go before the month of August concludes. So the team looks like it's going to be well set up for next week based on those players. Maybe a little bit light on Liverpool, but who are we to critique? Gatpan and Hugo are only 4 points behind, so all to play for. Do you think a chip will be used in game week two, Jake?
I can see a chip being used. I can see he's already started off with the game week one bench boost that we were quite against, but he seems to have smashed it. I think a triple captain or possibly free hit could be used to secure the game month. It'd be interesting to see what those around him choose to do going forward.
I have seen free hit be discussed in the community. Arsenal have a decent fixture this week. There are some teams in the league with triple Arsenal already, so a chance there to really crack on. So I think the team looks pretty well set up for next week, given the players that he's already got. Do you think there will be any transfers on his menu?
I think possibly Paqueta, given his performance for West Ham and the fact West Ham didn't look great on the weekend. I don't see any need for transfers specifically. His team does look pretty well set up and he's got great options on the bench. I think if I was him, I'd probably just roll it going forwards.
To not be tempted by any Arsenal against Leeds or anything? It looks quite difficult, actually, given that team structure, to do much around the Arsenal players, but
Yeah, I don't think he's got the price point apart from possibly Palmer to Saka. Other than that, I think only a free hit would give him the option to get some Arsenal players in.
it would be hard to argue against that, wouldn't it? Palmer to Saka. Um, Obviously, it's not a huge sample, but Palmer's performance has been underwhelming for a long time now. If you include the back half of last season, it does appear that Havertz is going to be out. I don't know if you've seen the news. So Gyökeres is likely to get more minutes, and he's been confirmed to be on penalties as well today. So Saka might lose those. Don't know if that would detract. It would certainly detract Saka's appeal for me. I don't generally enjoy owning him anyway, but maybe he could make a defensive transfer to cover some of the Arsenal cleanie, but that's kind of dancing around the edges, isn't it? Just finally on that team then, captain options. I mean, it's got to be Robot, hasn't it?
I think so. I can't see any way past Haaland, given his game week one score off to Spurs, who did look a bit better defensively, but they were against Burnley, so I think it's quite difficult to judge that. Um, yeah, the only other option is possibly Palmer, but like mentioned, his previous performances don't really give him that appeal to captain him. Although West Ham did concede three to Sunderland, I don't know if that could sway your opinion as a differential option.
Probably not. He had plenty of opportunities last year, and it's still been a real struggle. There are players below Moses with Haaland. I can imagine they'll be looking to captain him. I think it's down to third place has both Salah and Haaland. so a decent chance to maybe regain some ground there. So some general questions from our followers on TikTok. Would you wildcard in game week 2 if you'd had a poor start and were playing in our monthly league?
Personally, I wouldn't if you've had a poor start. I think, like you've mentioned before, saving it when you're in a good position. If you can wildcard to secure the month and catch a fixture swing, it's probably the best option. If you're mid-table and wildcarding, you probably won't see much benefit from that.
Yeah, agreed. I don't feel like there's enough going on at the moment to warrant it either. A couple of transfers and your team could look very different. So a quick review of our game week 1 scores. I am 65 all out. The highlights for me were getting that City call correct, just in terms of being much better, looking more dangerous than they did last year. I'm happy to have avoided West Ham and Villa. I did have a little bit of FOMO towards the game week deadline, but I stuck with it. Similar with the 5.5 midfielders that I've got. I actually prefer both Anderson and Reinders to Kudus. I know Kudus secured some returns this week. One of those looked a little bit fortunate with an outrageous finish from Richarlison. Away from my team, I thought performances elsewhere were pretty average, so I don't feel like I'm missing much at the moment. It would be kind of more fringe issues, like around the defence. There were some big defenders that scored well this weekend that I don't own. So Aitnuri, for example, had a really good game. But the plan at the moment is to make no changes and stick with that squad. How about you, Jake? Any highlights if you want to grab your team?
Okay, so I was 50 points all out, slightly below average, but not the worst game week. I'd take what I can get from that. Pretty average overall. I think the biggest highlight was probably Kudos. Two assists, as you mentioned, and absolutely worldy from Richarlison. Sort of overhead scissor kick. So that's great to see. Salah saving the game week on Friday, 94th minute. Was getting slightly twitchy towards the end of that. And Aitnuri bagging the clean sheet and the DEFCON points as well, which I was not expecting from him. Played pretty defensively that game with Doku out wide.
It's probably fair him playing more defensively if he's got Doku. He's probably not going to help him with any of that defensive work. It seems to have resulted in a good performance for City and good points for Aitnuri.
Yeah, just touching on a few other players that didn't return, but were quite enjoyable to watch. Doof had a shot cleared almost off the line, so could have been a goal there for him. Dorgu hit the post for United as well, so I think I'm going to play him this game week. And Strand Larsen did look really bright against City, so happy to play him for game week 2 as well.
So moving on to our game week 2 teams and thoughts on potential transfers and benches. I had been planning to roll a transfer and captain Palmer. I'm not going to captain Palmer any longer, given the performance on the weekend, even though he's playing a pretty poor looking West Ham. I'm going to leave it on Haaland. I think he had 2 expected goal involvements on the weekend. Going to stick with that. I expect Tottenham to be a bit better than they might have been over the last couple of years, but still, City should have plenty. As you mentioned, Strand Larsen looked pretty lively. I'm happy to start against Bournemouth. I'm not quite settled on my bench yet. I'm tempted to take Gakpo out, perhaps, and play Anderson, the Forest Anderson. But that's a fairly minor decision. It feels like I won't move Frimpong yet, but I wasn't massively reassured on the weekend, and it's the same for Pedro. I think it's just too early to draw too many conclusions there. As we discussed before the season kicked off, Pedro will be sharing his minutes, and Chelsea didn't play that well. hopefully West Ham can provide the catalyst for them to get off the mark. I had planned to own that double Chelsea attack for 4 or 5 game weeks, and I will stick with it, I think. But there are a couple of players on the radar that I'm interested in. And if I have two transfers going into week 3, I can imagine one of them drops out. So yeah, no major issues. Pretty happy with it. Any thoughts, Jake? Or
Yeah, on the Chelsea double up, I'm glad I swerved Pedro. I didn't think he'd do great, but Chelsea were generally pretty poor. I suppose if you don't see anything from them against West Ham, are you going to look to possibly move one or both of them out?
I think I'd possibly be looking to move off of Pedro if he didn't. Like I say, I'd wanted them for a kind of group of fixtures at the start. Um, there are players that have an eye, like Mateta, for example. Chris Wood's gone up in price. I'm not a Chris Wood fan, to be honest. I only owned him for a few game weeks last year. I generally prefer a bit more from my strikers. I know he puts the ball in the net, but Mateta would be kind of quite high up on the shopping list. I think probably too early for like Sesko, for example. Gokares has looked pretty average. Obviously, his first game in the Premier League. With that Kai Havertz news, maybe he becomes a bit more appealing. But Arsenal have hard fixtures from game week 3, and then they really turn. So hopefully he'll be up to match speed by then. If you were looking to catch those fixture swings, but like I said at the top, I'm happy with things. I don't feel like I need to make a transfer. It's just a few nickels that probably the best you can ask for at this point of the season.
Yeah, I think your team does look pretty well set up, and at least all your teams started,
Yes.
unlike mine.
Well, please continue in that case.
Cool. Shall I bring my team up and look at my game week 2 transfer plans?
Please do.
So for game week 2, currently I've not made any transfers. I've swapped the bench around a little bit, so both the West Ham players dropped off. Uh, Dorgu has come on, and so has Strand Larson. On the face of it, I'm pretty happy with my team. The biggest concern for me currently is Marmoush, who didn't start last week. Came on around the 60th minute. I thought he looked pretty good, but you just never know with Pep. Um, I'm debating risking it with Marmoush and see if he starts this week, but he's already dropped in price. My gut is telling me to transfer him out. I've got Semenyo, possibly Mbeumo or Cunha in my sights. Just quite conflicted on what to do with him. The rest of the team, I think's okay.
So this is the problem, isn't it, with having an 8.5 million midfielder that's a minutes risk?
Mm.
So I know Reinders performed on the weekend, but for 5.5 million, as we said in the last podcast, if it's a mistake, it's quite a small mistake. You've got potentially quite a big mistake now in that midfield. Um, and you've got to start Dewsbury Hall. To me, that looks like another 40 points.
Yeah, it's concerning. I thought Dewsbury Hall was okay. He was playing in that 10 position, and Everton at home hopefully do a bit more. So I don't mind starting him.
Yeah,
And he is only five.
he's playing 10 for Everton, isn't he? It's
Yeah, so Marmoush is the biggest concern. It's a bit of a toss-up between Watkins and Palmer. I don't want to risk Salah going away to Newcastle with everything that's going on between them and Liverpool at the minute. I think it's a bit of a risk. I could see Newcastle getting some result out of that and making it difficult for Liverpool.
I mean, Newcastle were okay on the weekend, weren't they? So it's not unlikely. I think these player movements possibly mean a little bit less than they used to, given the amount of international players in the league now. Back when we were nippers, Jake, it's a much different case. But I just don't feel like there's that much kind of rivalry these days necessarily. when you get those moves, but we'll see, I guess. Anything else you wanted to cover on your team, Jake?
No, apart from already mentioned, Marmoush, I think is the biggest headache going forward. I might transfer him out before the deadline. I just want to be sure I've got someone that's going to start, and for 8.5 mil, it's just too expensive to be a risk.
Yeah, would you not be tempted to play full Krug or
Not after what I saw. I'd be more inclined to play a Stev over Fulkrug against Chelsea.
So what did you make of DEFCON in real life?
I think it's a nice change to fantasy. It's nice to see it live in the app as well as you're tracking through. Uh, I was surprised by 8 Nori getting DEFCON. My team isn't really heavily set up for it. I think it's a fun feature, but like I said previously, I'm not sat watching, ticking it off as we go. But again, it is a good addition to have a new dimension.
I really enjoyed seeing those points ticking over and rolling in. Much more enjoyable to me than the rare upside you get from an attacking return, particularly when you've got interesting things going on in the rest of your team. Having that higher baseline from those types of players, it makes it much more enjoyable to me. It gives you a much more balanced team, in my opinion. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, you were quite unlucky to not get the Anderson DEFCON points as well. He did get an assist, but I think he was only one away from DEFCON contributions, which is another 2 points, which isn't bad for 5.5 mil midfielder.
No. So yeah, as I said earlier on, quite happy with those two 5.5 midfielders. So we'll persist with those for a little while. I've got one more question, just in terms of the community overall, and particularly around content creators getting pelters for some of their scores this week. Do you have any thoughts on that? The pressure to deliver and some of the unpleasant comments that I've seen them receiving online on things like Twitter.
I think it's a tough one to deal with. Obviously, you spend a lot of time planning, putting the content out, backing it, and then you get 20 points. It's difficult to swallow. I think there's not much you can do. Just take it on the chin. Um, it's only one game week, so you know, give it 3, 4 game weeks, and then see where they are.
Yeah, I feel like lots of experienced players see the game over a longer horizon, perhaps than most. I mean, I feel like I have quite a short term horizon on fantasy, just where things change so frequently. I always struggle to stick to a multi month view. I tend
Mm.
to be a lot more aggressive in how I approach things, but I feel like that might pay dividends this year. And there have been sufficient changes to the game with extra chips and the AFCON transfers to make that more aggressive approach a bit more viable, so not involving hits and that sort of thing. But we'll see. So if that's all we've got on the docket for today, I'll wish you and everyone else good luck. And do like and follow. Drop us any comments on TikTok. We'll try and get around to them over the next couple of days before Friday's deadline. Jake, anything else from you?
No, I think that's everything. Thanks for listening, and good luck with the upcoming game week.